Time for us to get into our very first conversation. Now, born in Klerksdorp, here in South Africa's northwest province, Thula Sindi discovered his love for fine art at a young age, a passion that soon evolved into a remarkable career in fashion. After matriculating from the National School of Arts in Johannesburg, he went on to study at LISOF. This is or rather noted as the London International School of Fashion, laying the foundation for a global design journey. Now, today's Thula Sindi is one of South Africa's most celebrated fashion designers. He has named South African, or rather was named South African Designer of the Year in 2012. And this I shared with you. This was by SA Tourism, recognized as Best Youth Entrepreneur by CEDA, and then listed by Mail and Guardian among the top 200 youth South Africans shaping the future. In the same year, Forbes included him in its prestigious 30 under 30, Africa's best young entrepreneurs list. He joins us this evening, a man of very many talents, and we'll be unpacking a few in just a short bit. For now, Thula, let's introduce you to the fort. Hello, welcome to African Diaries.
Hello, Shella. How you doing?
I am excited. Listen, Thula, I hear that you have dressed everyone in the studio. Can we start there? I was touched. Everybody in the studio has had the opportunity, the pleasure of being dressed by you. And I said, where am I? You know? But nevertheless, you don't know.
Just get something cute. Just get something
Right?
cute from me.
Right, I think so too. But I think for me, that's just a testament to the capacity and capability of your work. Now, you launched Africa Rise as a retail concept, and this celebrating Africa's designer. What inspired you to create this platform?
2026 is my 20th year in fashion. I am 42, but I started my career very early, as soon as I graduated from fashion school. So this is my 20th year as an eponymous actual designer. But I looked at my career and said, what can I do for the design industry as a whole? Because I've had my own retail stores, but so many creatives didn't have their own space to retail their products. And on the African continent, we're not short of talent. What we are short of is access to market. So I said, you know what I want to see, I am going to create. So in 2019, I created Africa Rise, which is a collective of different designers and creators from across the African continent who sell their product in my store that is in Sandton City. That is what we do in short. We bring the beauty and talent of African creators under one roof in the most prestigious address in the richest square mile in Africa.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more there. And I mean, for those who are coming and those who are privy to your talent, I mean, I'm talking Hong Kong, Beijing, New York, Paris, Nigeria, Kenya. These are places that have seen your work, that have experienced the fullness of your talent. What does this then mean for the designers who are a part of your listing? You know, I can only imagine if I had my work there in Sandton City, somewhere hanging there, where Thula Sindi's under the bar, you know, it would change my life. So what are some of the conversations that you have with these young designers?
For me, it's always about, like I said, access to market. The beauty that we create as designers is so amazing, but often we need to sell our products from the proverbial boot of our cars. And that kind of lessens what we can ask for. So it's always about context. Product is about context. And I've got a wonderful designer from Ghana. Her name is Honor. She creates the most beautiful product, but it just needed to be put in a context that honors the beauty of her product. So the conversations I have with them are very short. You make beautiful product, it needs to be seen in a beautiful environment. And that's in short what we are missing. As Africans, we are so abundantly gifted that it is actually almost tragic in how difficult it has to be for us when we are so naturally gifted. But for me to play my part with Africa Rise has been what feels like my calling at this point. Not to be too hyperbolic, but it honestly is what I need to do with my career going forward, is to open up doors for the rest of the talent that's on this continent.
Absolutely. Hashtag open up the industry. The voice there of Thula Sindi, one of South Africa's most celebrated fashion designers, joining us this evening. 41 minutes after 10 p.m. Central Africa time. A quick breather. When we get back, we chat so much more with Thula Sindi, including the Mahindra Fusion Fest 2026. It is 18 minutes before 11 p.m. Central Africa time. We are still in conversation with one of South Africa's most celebrated fashion designers who, beyond the runway, continues to shape the future of African fashion through platforms such as Rise Africa. Thula, let's talk all things challenges. Right. I think one that you heavily stated, and essentially the reason behind the concept of Africa Rise, is access to market. What other problems, what other issues are you seeing that African designers are facing that don't necessarily come to the light when it comes to our creativity, our talent, and our offering?
And I feel we've got two big challenges, especially on the rest of the continent, is formal institutions that teach fashion design. Fashion design is a craft and it is a skill-based industry. So you need to learn the theory, you need to learn the practical components, and formal institutions really assist designers be able to fast track their talent, be able to refine their talent, to have quality control, to have international standards in the space of having a diploma for 3 years, or if they decide to study even further, to just really kind of perfect their offering. And a lot of designers in the continent are self-taught, which is it's very difficult, and it should not be that way because one makes a lot of mistakes when you're teaching yourself or you're learning from people who aren't formally trained. It really does. It is a challenge, and I think the second one is just access to capital. Fashion is a very resource intense business. As much as it is such a good employer, it's easy to train people in different aspects of fashion. It is a great industry for governments to really invest in, and also the private sector to really to create jobs, to create a national identity and pride. But not a lot of institutions, formal and government, seem to see the value and invest in fashion adequately enough to really have enough capital within the ecosystem of fashion. So those are the two really, 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 really big challenges.
Now, Thula, I want us to dispel a few things that people have listed on the ground, right? So we have somewhat to an extent amalgamated the role of a fashion designer alongside the role of a tailor, alongside the role of a seamstress, right? At some
Oh,
point,
it
that,
pains me so.
yeah. Okay, let me let you come out with it, come out with it.
You poked the bear. When it comes to that, a fashion designer is somebody that creates concepts. They create an entire world. And all of these three roles really are important, but they're their own universes. A tailor is a person that it's like a service. They provide a service that can assist you in having what you need, but they are not a visionary. They do not come up with the concept. And that is a very, very, very big difference. And a seamstress is somebody that can work along with a designer to create, to help them actualize their vision. But think of a designer as a visionary. They are there to create vision, to create brands, and they can employ tailors, they can employ a seamstress. But they're not the same thing, but they're also not mutually exclusive. They are part of the ecosystem. And not one is better than the other, but they do have different needs. They do play a different part in the ecosystem of fashion, and all are important because you cannot have the ecosystem whilst missing any of these three
I
role players.
Yeah. I think what's beautiful is seeing all three roles come together in their respective creative roles, right? However, I have seen a number of businesses declare all three when in actual fact they serve you as one or two, and I think it becomes a pain point for a person who time to study this craft, to articulate their talent well. That level of attention to detail is also something that I can imagine would affect somebody such as yourself on your caliber. Nevertheless, let's move on and talk all things Mahindra Fusion Fest 2026. The Saturday is looking beaming. Tell me more.
I am so excited. The Mahindra Fusion Fest started last year. The vision was to fuse different elements of South African art, which means fine art, music, and fashion, which are the three leading trends and the three leading art forms in South Africa. And it was a very, very ambitious project by Mahindra, and it worked out perfectly. I created a collection that was inspired by the car, the actual 3XO, and the show was amazing. So they decided to recreate it again this year, bigger and better. And I'm the creative director for the fashion component this year. So I decided to pick three designers who I feel are the new wave, the new generation of creatives. So it's BAM Collective, it's Imprint, and it's Munkus. And for me, they are what is the epitome of the new generation. And that is kind of what I want to bring forth. We also have selected five really young designers as part of the fashion contest. And the finalists, we flew them up. So they're going to also be showing and competing to be the big winner of the 30,000 Rands prize. So for me, it's partnering with the private sector to improve the arts industry, to improve the fashion industry, and to actually have something that is meaningful, dynamic, but also entertaining. So the show is this Saturday, and it's at Sunbet Arena in Pretoria. Unmissable. The Mahindra Fusion Fest, unmissable.
Thula, I want us to take a quick breather, and then when we get back, I want us to talk about these three brands, perhaps not the three brands in totality, but more so what the new wave is. What is the new wave of fashion, African fashion? I think everybody would like to learn that. The voice there of one of South Africa's most celebrated fashion designers, Thula Sindi, joining us this evening. If you want to send through your questions, we do have a bit of time left with Mr. Thula. Please do find us on WhatsApp, +278 3288 6684. 10 minutes before 11 p.m. Central Africa time, we're still in conversation with a designer that's taking the African space of fashion by storm, but not just the African space. I think a global experience is what Thula Sindi offers. He is the future of African fashion, African attire, African regalia, and with him, he's taking a bunch of amazing fashion designers to really set the stage for what's Africa is about in 2026 and in the season and era of fashion. Thula, I said that we would end off by talking about what fashion is about. I want to start off with this, right? Sometimes fashion feels so abstract that it feels like it should stay a painting, it should stay something that you look at, but you don't incorporate in your own dress sense, dress code. Is that how we're supposed to look at fashion?
Not at all. It helps us dream. And, fashion and fashion shows are part of kind of moving our eyes forward, because what is extreme today is part of the everyday in a month, 3 months, or even 2 years from now. So that's how trends start. That's how ideas start. I think it's even the same in academia. If somebody will present a paper that is so much pushing the envelope and it'll be part of their big dissertation, but if it's proven correct, it becomes part of common knowledge. So that's what it is. It's about pushing the actual envelope. It's about challenging our ideas about beauty. And I think it's exciting. Things that, as human beings, we've got so much work that we do that we need other genres that kind of stimulate us. The arts are not a privilege. We should have beautiful spaces that we walk in. We should have beautiful spaces that we live in. Beauty and design and craft is such a vital part of just being happy as human beings that sometimes we should not sideline it. It should be part of our everyday life.
And then lastly, what is a fashion statement of 2026? So what is fashion, specifically African fashion, about?
African fashion, especially in 2026, is about looking inwards. There's so much happening in the world. There is just so much negativity and conflict that we need to remember that we are the cradle of humankind. We hold the seeds to the future. We are a young continent. We've got so many young people Africa is the future, literally. So we need to remember that, remember our roots, but also remember that we hold the seeds to the future. So that just looking inwards, celebrating the continent, celebrating ourselves, that is the statement of 2026.
And we will leave it at that, Mr. Thula. Just like you had an opportunity to meet your fashion icon, Valentino, I had an opportunity to meet mine. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you.
The voice there of one of the most celebrated fashion designers in South Africa, Thula Sindi, joining us. It is 53 after 10 p.m. Central Africa time. One thing I can say about Fashion 2026 is that we have an opportunity to reflect, okay? The fashion statement, or rather the premise of anything and everything, is looking inward. Understanding that you are the cradle of humankind. Understanding that from you, all the beauty, all the aspirations, all the amazingness will flow from within to, of course, outside. I was about to say without, but I don't think that's how we mention it. Nevertheless, if you want to send through your commentary, I'd love to hear from you this evening. What does fashion mean to you in 2026? Find me on WhatsApp +278 3288 6684.